evening, good evening. Probably wondering what's taking so long to start the program. Just a bit of technical, organization going on in the background. You know how Murphy Law operates. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong at some point. But also contrastingly equal is anything that can go right will go right. So hopefully this program goes extremely right. So tonight we're going to have another wonderful program on this evening's episode of Streams of Consciousness. The time is now 8:08. Tonight we're going to have in studio with us Dominic King, who's a Pan Africanist as well. He goes by the name of McClean Williams, or who I like to consider or call McClean Williams. We do appreciate your patience. If you are listening or viewing, you can view us live on DBS Facebook. As well as here on radio. So, just gonna put the music to play, organize the ones and twos, and get into the educational segment, the introduction segment, and we'll be right with you here on Streams of Consciousness.
Every single day, pouring all the energy. Spectators, them looking from far, wonder how we manage it. When things get dreading at the system, I know no one wants to be a victim. We come together, whole a reasoning. People tell me, are you listening? Braveheart, we got they just can't harm us. Your love is all we need. We got they just can't harm us. Your love is all we need. Power to the go-getters. Can't you see we are professionals? Open up your pupils and your retinas. Matter of fact, open up your receptors. Make a link with the great ancestors. Like diamond, you feel the pressure. Love in our hearts, it ain't got no measure. Life is just a beautiful gift, yes it's a treasure. Give thanks and praise to Jah, forever and ever. Braveheart, we got they just can't harm us. Jah love is all we need. Braveheart, we got they just can't harm us. Jah love is all.
Yes, and welcome back. So the music you're listening to is by Ras Organic, who was last week's guest. And last week with Ras Organic, we spoke on two laws of the laws of nature. Those were the law of polarity and the law of rhythm, out of the 12 laws of the universe. And we also spoke on his new album called Braveheart. This is the song that you're listening to on that album. But tonight we're going to be having our guest, with no further ado, Dominic King, McClean Williams, who's a Pan Africanist, a holistic health advocate, as well as a youth advocate, just to name a few things, as he'll be sharing his views on consciousness from a point of a Pan Africanist view. So, Brother McClean, it's an absolute pleasure here to have you. Do introduce yourself to the rest of the viewers and the listeners as well on here on Dominica's broadcasting station. One more time. Okay, try one more time.
Yeah.
All right, excellent.
Greetings to the listening public. Yeah, I was saying, first and foremost, as always, we always give thanks and praise to the Most High to be able to be in a situation where we could speak to the Dominican people, to engage them in a conversation of growth. So as always, we give thanks. I'm just here tonight to give a perspective of Pan-Africanism and consciousness, and how I think we can take it to its revolutionary potential as far as transforming the life and the material conditions of the Dominican people, and possibly the world by extension.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, brother.
Yeah, man, as always, the pleasure is all mine as well.
Nice.
Always give thanks for that.
Awesome. Usually in the beginning of the program, I do apologize for starting it off late. We have a educational segment where we just have the word of the week and some other informative stuff as we try to elevate the consciousness and the vocabulary of consciousness within the Dominican state and, just globally, regionally, internationally. So tonight's segment, the word of the week is receptivity, meaning to be open-minded or having the willingness to consider or accept new suggestions and ideas, after which we'll spend the duration of the program speaking with McClean. And let's just go into it as to what receptivity basically means. Receptivity meaning open-mindedness, as I've stated before, as our brains generally crave certainty and routine, meaning that we love to know that everything's okay, everything is going to be all right, everything's flowing nice and dandy. Take, for example, tonight's beginning of the program, to be actually honest with you. It is in a state of open-mindedness and receptivity that knowing that everything is going to be okay, everything is going to be all right, allows one to have that calm state of mind. That part of our brain is controlled by what you call the amygdala, which is part of your neural system, which processes emotions. That becomes activated when you are not aware of what's going on. You have no control of the enigmatic. That's where either doubt, fear, excitement, joy, all these emotions can be a result based on your receptivity or lack thereof, how willing you are to accept the time, the present moment, or last week's discussion, the rhythm of life, the times in which things operate. And that now, once you accept that, it will help in your personal growth. Personal growth happens in a space of openness, compassion for yourself, others, judgment, hatred, ignorance. All of these things, they get extinguished, even anger and the like. And in my particular case tonight, the enigmatic unknowingness of what's really going on technically, but knowing everything will be okay in the right time. And it just so happened that I also stumbled upon something called endometrial receptivity and fertility. Endometrium is the layer of tissue which lines up with your uterus if you're a woman, and being endometrial receptive is when the lining of the womb is receptive to the embryo. In other words, when the woman is ready or accepting of life. So life in itself is openness and accepting. The lack thereof is anti-life, or that negative things to push away, the destruction. And of course, that is shielded by what you call a glycoprotein. I don't want to go too scientific, but there's a line of thing that helps protect and ensure that the embryo and stuff will be all right. And that in itself is part of the helping hands that guide us into this receptivity. So again, the key word is receptivity, basically meaning to receive, be open-mindedness to new ideas, changes, just accepting the moment of life as it happens and knowing that everything will be okay. So Brother Mac, it is an absolute pleasure again here to have you in the program. And
definitely.
Yes.
I give thanks.
All right. So education section done. Who is McClean Williams, and how did you get into your Pan-Africanist? And just let people know who you are as we enter into this conversation.
Yes, well, my name is McClean Williams once again. I was born and raised in the communities of Fortney and Newtown, just down the street there. As far as getting into the whole Pan-Africanist movement, strange enough, I would say I attended the St. Mary's Academy. And before that, I was introduced to the works of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And then from there, I guess the seed was planted. When I went to the St. Mary's Academy, about third form there, about a group of friends of mine at the SMA, we ourselves got introduced to the music of Sizzler. And from then on, I can safely say it have been up and away, basically the whole Pan-Africanist movement. From there, it went to gaining more and more knowledge, more and more reading, more and more understanding or overstanding. I could safely say I'm at a point now where I feel I could speak to the people with some level of confidence as far as Pan-Africanism is concerned, and as far as consciousness to a certain degree is concerned as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So your take on consciousness from a Pan-African point of view.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, let me, like everything else, we must begin with a definition. Now, if you open up any dictionary or any Google search engine, whether it's Google or Yahoo, whatever the case might be, you could easily pull up a definition of consciousness. Now, what I have done, I have taken certain definitions and then I have blended into my experiences and my understanding and put together a short definition that suits basically myself.
Okay.
And to me, it's basically a state of being, whereas the individual and the collective, not or the collective and the collective, can not only be aware of, but could also locate themselves within the dimensions of life. And the dimensions of life, we will get to that as the program progresses. Now, the whole definition in itself, if you observe, the word awareness came to the forefront. Awareness then brings to the forefront sharply the whole idea of knowledge. Okay. If we understand what knowledge is. Now, as African people, we have to understand that knowledge of self in itself, while we hear every day, know thyself, it have almost become like a cliche because we say it, but as far as the practical, the work that goes into it, sometimes is non-existent. So the whole idea of history is very important because history is the greatest source of knowledge of any nation, of any civilization. We have to know history. But then we have to be careful as African people because what you will see is that, for example, when we look at history, traditionally, African people did not transmit history through writing. It was seldom done.
So oral.
Yes, oral. We transmitted history through, for example, like poetry, through the arts, through music, through the use of the griots who basically used to have the responsibility of transmitting that history from generation to generation to generation. Okay. What happened with African people as far as history is concerned is that post-colonialism, what we had Europeans writing the history of African people. Now, understand this. What good is history to a people and oppressed people at that if that history is written by the oppressors? So when we use history basically as a source of knowledge, we have to be careful of the history of that history of what they call, for example, historiography, who write the history from what context it was written. And that is why every day we give thanks for people, for example, like John Henry Clark, Dr. John Henry Clark, Ivan Van Sertimer. We give thanks for Dr. Ben. We give thanks for Eric Williams. We give thanks for Walter Rodney. We give thanks for C.L.R. James and all these great men who took on the responsibility of writing African history from an African perspective. And therefore, we could use that history as a revolutionary tool, as a transformative tool to change our conditions of life.
Positive, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I also feel very blessed to be in this moment of history, present history, of course, and hearing you articulate such. And going to the past too much, however, it's like you said, unless the story of the lion hasn't been told, then it's only, the victor story that will be told. What story are you trying to tell here tonight? Or what story do you feel is very important for the present times that, our young men or young women or any Dominic kings and queens out there, they need to know and understand, especially during this present zeitgeist? Yes,
well, the whole idea, again, of history, from a young man's perspective, I would say we have to understand that it is basically circular. So what was is and what is will be. We need to understand that everything is connected.
What was is and what is will be.
Will be.
Okay.
Yes. So we need to understand that history in itself, it comes full circle. So again, we have to understand that when we take the whole idea of history, there is a revolutionary potential within that. But it have to be used in a particular way. And I want to be very clear, when we say revolutionary potential, we don't mean, for example, revolution at the end of a barrel of a gun. We mean revolution basically from an ideological struggle, if you want to put it that way, and victory thereof. So we have to use that history and to find ourselves within that history, and then we can build from there. So my position tonight, or in life in general, is to build on what the ancestors have put forward, not starting over, to build on what they have put forward, and hopefully to leave a platform that those coming after could then stand up on and build going forward as well.
Oh, that's positive.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a very strong point to segue into a little bit of a musical break. After which I'm going to take 30 seconds to, do a conscious breathing, like a conscious meditation, and then we're going to go deeper into the conversation.
No problem. We give thanks.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, man. Well, this is one of philosophy. Well, so you let them know it's more marijuana. Cause you don't know the ganja, but people nights more. Well,
of course, this one is done by Ama and Atunya. The name one is called Philosophy. And let's have a listen to it.
Smoking Bible cutting restaurable with a righteous cause. Ready for burn Babylon wall. Ganja smoking Bible cutting restaurable with a righteous cause. Man, I go mix up with no fraud. That one your name. Ganja smoking Bible cutting restaurable with a righteous cause. Ready for burn Babylon wall. Ganja smoking Bible cutting restaurable with a righteous cause. Them can lose it like mug. True, we wiser than them and a following judgment. Or your meditation not what me intend. Smoke up the chalice in congregation with me friends. Now smoke the herb in and no false pretense. Read up the Bible and a chant some reverence. With a righteous cause Selassie is with defense. Joy and love for the picnic use them. Babylon, them all figure drenched. For the one and name ganja smoking Bible putting Rasta rebel with a righteous cause. Ready for burn down Babylon wall. Ganja smoking Bible putting Rasta rebel.
This one is Kali I, also a Dominican, called Heavy Smoker.
When me have me spliff light, that'll give me the bass vibe, that'll give me the bass mind. Yeah, me alright. Well, I'm a heavy smoker, me smoke a lot of ganja. As one joint die, another one burning up. Ash pon me pants, ash all pon me flat. Give me the one with no flavor. Gelato strong like dinosaur. One puff make me fly like NASA. You me love smoke me up with don't planter. Don't give me the anyway dinner. Always have the links out of foreign. French man pan me phone them calling. Get the last shipment now they balling. Them want the same quality, they want to repeating. The cycle that we creating. Now a good business, that's what we making. Give thanks for that, for the protecting and all the blessings. Well, I'm a heavy smoker, me smoke a lot of ganja. As one joint die, another one burning up. Ash pon me pants, ash all pon me flat. Give me the one with no flavor.
Every ghetto youth, every hustler, and struggle, motivation.
This one is from OJ, Dominican, called Guide Me.
No man was born perfect, but me know me no worthless. Bad mind them see you start climb the ladder, them and try pull you down on the first step. All of the things what me been through in a life, still me never feel cursed yet. From me wake up in the morning, me give thanks, cause me so blessed. Jah guide me in the streets, let me reach my goal. Every day so easy, if you see me, don't see the devil seek my soul, yeah. I feel so can't watch people think, no tell me I forget my own. And me have a family to feed, so help me reach back home, yeah. Help me reach back home. Help me reach back home, yeah. And me have a family to feed, so help me reach back home, yeah. So wish me see me go back in a crime. If we end up in a jail and waste more time. But by the help of the Most High, man will survive.
Yeah, man. So, of course, this one is the background music for the program. But you just heard from Ama Moses, Kali I, and OJ. Of course, two of the songs spoke about the cannabis plant, both of which spoke about the connection to the Bible, meditation, fighting against the Babylonian system, and of course just calling a meditation. And the last song spoke about just keeping his head strong to fight the system despite the challenges that he faced with. Of course, some may or may not agree to some of the lyrics or may not like the vibration, but the point of tonight's program is called receptivity and open-mindedness to differences of vibrational frequencies and understanding. So tonight, of course, if you're now tuning in, I'm here with my brother McClean, who is giving us a Pan-African viewpoint on certain things. And the last song, the brother spoke about having to fight against the system and not lose his soul, not lose his mind. What advice do you have for, some of the Dominic Kings that are out there, dealing with and facing some of the struggles financially, spiritually, just name it, and still trying to hold that fort down?
Well, I would say it's interesting that you brought that point, because it's something I intended to address as the program again progresses. And when we speak of systems, we need to understand, because sometimes we hear every day the system. And then I often ask myself, really and truly, to what extent do we understand what the system is and what the system is? Now, when we speaking, for example, of economics, speaking of an economic structure that builds up into an economic system, we have what they call in Dominican global scale, they call the global capitalist system. And that, I think, is where, in my opinion, is the source of the greatest misery to humankind on the earth today. And we need to understand what the capitalist system is as an economic system, as a social system. So briefly, I would say the capitalist system is one where, for example, the mode of production, in terms on the means of production, is privately owned. And the point of production is basically for profit. And that in itself could breed a lot of danger as far as human dignity is concerned. So my advice to the young people is, capitalism as an economic system, it nurtures the whole idea, the spirit of individualism. It's me, myself, and I could do everything on my own. The young people need to understand that is a very detrimental mindset. We need to understand that there is strength in unity, and in everything we do, we need to come together. Economics is basically key as far as building any people, building any nation. And to me, I see no way out of the current economic situation that we are in on a global scale if we continue to go down the path of capitalism. Dominican itself is a very, I would say, in a very unfortunate situation, and the Caribbean region, if you want to put it that way, speaking again from a Pan Africanist standpoint, you could bring Africa into it, in the sense that when we define capitalism in itself, to what extent do we really fit that definition? Because if we look at the productive capacity of these regions through the whole lack of industrialization, what we have, for example, is we have seen production being superseded by importation. So really and truly, we run an economy based on imports, and that in itself is through no individual policy. That is how the system basically designed. We as Caribbean people, West African people, when we look at the global structure, we are located on the periphery. Basically, our role is consumers within that system. So others produce and we consume. Once you're locked into that position as a consumer, there is no way you're going to be able to move out of it and be productive going forward in life. There is no way. So we need to understand that there is unity is the key. And every time I speak to young people, young men in particular, I understand the whole pressures of the world in terms of doing everything on your own. But there is no way out of that darkness if we continue doing things on our own. We have to come together. We have no choice. As it states, Pan-Africanism or perish.
All right.
Yeah.
That's powerfully said. But of course, just to bring some balance or some contrast to this discussion, I'll play the devil's advocate and be like, well, sometimes you may be in a room filled with people, but you still feel like you're alone. And in the sense of, we having that sense of consumerism approach to life as a community, as a regional society, but also what we consume in our minds and spiritually as well. What we look at on social media, our conversations with our friends. Sometimes you may feel like, I want to, unite with my brother, but if I share my ideas with him, he may not be as enlightened to the point of wanting to have that genuine need and desire. So somehow you may feel like you want to help, you want to share, you want to do that thing with a lot of people in society, yet still, how do you then, be change or be that positive vibration out there?
Yes. Well, you see, the thing is, let's go back again. You see, Carmichael said it's the job of the conscious to make the unconscious conscious. Facts. So if we go back again, as far as we're looking at the term consciousness, the definition of the term consciousness, and forms and functions of consciousness. You mentioned spirituality. Let's take, for example, if we look, for example, at the Ifa divination system of West Africa, the Yoruba people.
Okay.
In their consciousness in itself take place within 4 arenas of perception. You have, and listen to them very carefully. And let's define what they say is conscious thought. What is consciousness? Consciousness basically is the integration of thought and emotions to create what we call wisdom. Now listen to the awareness of perception. Okay. We have internally, which speaks to one's self, and there we engage ourselves with things like identity and so on and so forth, emotions. Externally, that's another arena of perception, where we deal with what you're talking about is the other people, the environment, or whatever the case might be. Then we also have the past. We examine the past through accessing our memory. The memory is not personal memory, belongs to me. The memory belongs to all of us. So the memory of my ancestors is my memory as well, and the memories, what we're doing today, will be the memories of those to come. So we have to examine the past through memory. And then we have the future.
Right.
The future, we activate our imagination to envision the future. So if we understand consciousness and we're really at that level we're supposed to be, you be in a room with 10, 50, 100 people and you sharing that vision, even if everybody is not on board with the vision, the most they would do is to help push you along with the idea and do not do anything whatsoever to destroy that dream. So it goes back again to the whole idea of consciousness. Once we get to that standpoint of understanding what it is, everything is blessed.
That was masterfully said, brother. I must say, masterfully said. That was a holistic response. I'm not going to pretend to be able to remember everything you said, but let me just try and, for those who are listening and viewing as well, in terms of what I assimilated, there are 4 key parts of the African Yoruba levels of consciousness to deal with situations of unity and moving forward, social mobility as a culture. That would be the internally, externally, socially, and
the past and the future.
Past and the future. Internally, externally, past and future.
Yes.
I'll definitely be absorbing that, brother.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
And just to elaborate a bit further, when we're speaking again of the external factor, the external aspect of it, that is, for example, where we examine things like empathy. And I was speaking to someone not too long ago, and I was saying to them that in society we have a lot of subhumans walking around, because one of the things we have to understand that makes us a human being is empathy. The ability to put ourselves into the places of other people and not necessarily sharing their physical pain, but at least understand the pain they're going through. So therefore, if I look at you, Hassan, as my brethren, and you're going through some hard times, and I put myself in your position, and I imagine to myself what I would like somebody else to do for me, then that's what I'm going to do for you. And it's as simple as that. There's no high science or nothing really complicated in that. So at the end of the day, when we speak of externally, we have to think of empathy, we have to think of trust as well. So it's those emotions, those factors that come into play. And once we understand those things as a society, I believe we will make some great progress.
Definitely, man. Yeah. Appreciate it. All right, so the time is now 8:35 p.m. And around this time, I usually take about 30 seconds to a minute to meditate and give the Creator thanks for the breath of life.
Yes.
It would be an absolute pleasure if you join
me. Definitely, man. I'm looking forward to that. That's why I'm waiting on that part.
Yes, I can. So it's going to put the music to put a little background music. I'm going to count to 3. 1 to 3, deep breath in. 3 to 1, deep breath out. And we're just going to let the vibes flow. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. And let's just catch a vibe. And just like that, give the Creator thanks and praise for the breath of life.
All praise is due
to the Most High.
To the Most High.
So my first question after my meditation is, what area of society you feel like, if there was just one, if you had to boil it down to one area of society you'd like to see more consciousness, and if there was more consciousness around, what area would that be?
So many, but to narrow it down to one, I would like to see a more conscious vibes in the interaction among the people, especially among the young people, because if you really look at things right now, we have, I would consider an epidemic in the Caribbean region where we have guns, an instrument of death, being used and basically bringing chaos to the place. So I think if we look at, for example, the power of dialogue, speaking to each other, we will understand that words in themselves can be transformative. But in order for words to be transformative, they must be true. There is 2 elements to every word that could transform life in itself. There must be reflection and there must be action. So before I speak to you, Hassan, I have to reflect on what I'm going to say to you. And then after I speak to you, we have to then go into action. And if we do that with each other across the board, that level of consciousness, I believe, would basically disarm the hearts and the minds of the people. Because we cannot continue to use these instruments of death. I mean, if you look at the role that the gun and gunpowder have played in the enslaving of black people, combined as well with alcohol, I mean, we have to move on from those devices that we have to. We have no choice.
Indeed, man.
Yeah.
Indeed. So basically getting rid of the weapons of mass destruction and turn on the weapons of mass construction through proper communication and reflection of what we say and share amongst ourselves as Dominic Kings.
Definitely.
And I think that's a masterful answer.
Definitely.
I'm going to run this song called Israel Vibration, Cool and Calm. I think it's a fitting song for the discussion and just that overall statement.
Yes.
Yo, 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 yo. Yeah, nah. Standing on the corner, reason with your brethren. You never mean no trouble. You never do no harm. Taking it cool and calm. And so we are one.
Yes, hello. We just missed that call here. Of course, the numbers to call, I forgot. Local line 1-800-327. International, feel free to call back 305-4329-744. Local 448-3281, as well as 448-3279. Usually after the program, I respond to messages and comments that I see on Facebook. But based on what I'm seeing here, I'm unable to do that. Not because it's not a possibility. I'm just not that good in terms of maneuvering.
Yeah. Everything blessed, man.
Yeah. Yes, hello? Yes, hello, you on? I can hear you, but a bit muffled.
Hi, Hassan.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, good evening to you and good evening to your guest.
Yes, good evening.
I did not hear his name from the beginning. I think I missed it.
McClean Williams.
McClean Williams. Okay. Well, so many things that we can touch on, but we don't have the time. However, when we talk about consciousness, we sometimes do not even touch the area of spirituality. You know, we talk about economics, education, politics, and all of that. But spirituality is, you know, a very important aspect of our history.
It is.
I heard him talk about the, you know, C.R. James and all the other historians. I don't know whether he knows. There's a brother who goes back to Egypt every year. And then he goes in, I mean, he follows the hieroglyphs in the pyramids. So that's what our ancestors left on the walls of the pyramids. And the Europeans went and copied and gave us the Bible. And a lot of us do not know that. Because we were colonized, and what they gave us, that's what we accepted, and we never questioned things.
Yes, this led to...
If you could touch a little bit on our spirituality as an African people, I would greatly appreciate that.
You're greatly appreciated as well, yeah. So she's speaking
Thank
about...
you.
Most welcome. Thank you so much for your call. She's basically talking about the laws of Ma'at, the hieroglyphical images and stuff our ancestors left and that type of thing. And, you know, Al-Kibulan or Kemet or that type of information. If you could just touch a bit more on that to let people know where the Pan-African view comes into the story of what our ancestors left in the walls of the great...
Yes, I think gentleman she mentioned, the name she was looking for, I think, is Dr. Anthony Brawler. I think that's the gentleman she was looking for when it goes to Egypt. Where she is absolutely correct. When it comes to the history of African people, we could take our journey, or we could start our journey in Egypt, and then we could move down from there. The whole idea of And when she speak of spirituality, I purposely went to
Economics.
no, not economics. I purposely went to Nigeria, Yoruba land, to speak of the Ifa divination system, because as a matter of fact, that in itself right now, as they say, is taking off in the world as far as followers as a belief system. To counteract, I would imagine some of the shortcomings of Christianity, because I tell people every day, Christianity in itself, the principles of Christianity are fundamentally African. If you really think about it, it's what the Europeans stole from African people, repackaged it, as Dr. John Henry Clark said, and gave it back to the people. Now, the issue with Egypt in itself, why me personally as a Pan-Africanist have tend to drift away from it and then try to go back down into the heart of Africa in terms of Western Africa, is that what I've observed over the years, we have spent as African people a lot of time trying to make Egypt our own. And if it is our own, it is our own.
Yeah.
The Europeans have tried their best to turn Egypt into everything other than black, other than African people, belonging to African people. Now, in that now, and to make to come full circle, again, I was speaking to a young Briton the other day, and I said to him, listen, I understand the whole idea of Egypt and the importance of Egypt. We should discuss Egypt. We should discuss the findings of Egypt. But and that's me speaking to you personally, I don't see the benefit to us as African people by only looking on Egypt as an ancient civilization, and we are here today. While we are saying Egypt was great, and I agree, let's try and build something great today. Because the people sometimes, and I give thanks for the sister to bring it up, because I really want to touch on it. You hear young men talk about Egypt, and they themselves are doing absolutely nothing today to at least contribute or build on what the ancient Egyptians left us as African people. That's the only issue I have. And we have spent a lot of time trying to take back or claim what is rightfully our own. So what we do is we just take it, we build on it, we embrace it, and we move on.
All right.
Yes.
Just to, again, put a little balance to it, isn't her argument kind of in line with what you're saying in terms of
yes, it is.
Past
it
and
is.
present,
Yes, it is.
and internal, external.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think
Yes.
it is important, to understand where our past is, our present is,
Definitely.
internally and externally. Analyze
Definitely.
the holistic view of our spirituality.
Definitely.
So we appreciate that contribution, caller.
Yes.
And of course, the time is now 8:44. Time blows by so quickly. And so let's go into another aspect of the program, in where we have now understood, in terms of the recap, what African spirituality is from your perspective, as we can only speak from our understanding of things, your Pan-Africanist view, as well as some of the areas in which you feel like society could benefit from in terms of being self-dependent, self-reliance, economically, educational-wise. We have another caller. Good evening. You are tuned in to Consciousness.
Hello?
Yes, good evening. If you could just turn down your listening device, there's a bit of a delay, but we can hear you clear.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, it's me again. I know of Anthony Browder, but the brother I'm really talking about his name is Ashra Kwesi.
She said Ashra Kwesi.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Ashra Kwesi.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, he takes visitors to Egypt every year. They go to the pyramids and they study a lot of history there.
Okay.
Also, can you address Horus, Heru, and Aset? Who like the figures, spiritual figures.
And in his favor, to be honest, you are fading in and out. I heard you asking about Osiris, Haru, Aset, the Egyptian gods, and their relevance. From my basic
Horus, Aset.
From my basic understanding, I could be wrong. McClean, you can feel free to correct me anytime.
You could take that.
I understand that it has to deal with the allegorical or metaphorical ways in which we used to translate information so that even children could understand, like parables, and they were reflections of scientific elements like fire, sun, iron, copper, these type of things, and the elements that you find in the external universe, the waters of Noon, the Immaculate Conception. All of these things can be broken down into a scientific mannerism as to how consciousness exists, as well as our makeup with melanin and how Osiris elements are important in the creation of life and so on. Henceforth, the whole spiritual aspect of our ancient Kemetic ancestors did it for a holistic view, in that scientifically, spiritually, we have to understand that we are all connected to, and we don't worship one aspect or the individualistic aspect of where religiosity has came in, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does, because that history that we were disconnected to has to be taught to us so that we can disconnect from the spirituality that we were given after we were colonized. A lot of us don't even know an inch of our history because we accepted things, never question things. But now, I think we're turning around, and when we have people like you on the radio, becoming Dominicans, that is very, very great. I really appreciate that, and I thank you for being a part of the program today.
And I thank you for helping us share that consciousness. Without you, it wouldn't be possible.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes. So,
Asamba, to what you're saying there, if we have to go into the whole aspect of...
It's an entire program, man.
And not only that, as she rightfully said, it's going to throw basically everything we have learned before out the window. We have to relearn everything all over again. So she's absolutely correct. So I think going forward, that might be something we could maybe put together, bring a few of the elders on, maybe if herself wanted to be part of the program to come in, and let's see if we could start the whole, I would say, re-education process. Because that's what it's all about, is re-educating the people, not in the traditional Western type of education, but in true education, that is.
Well, fully said, man. I think that's a brilliant idea as well.
Yes.
And I do appreciate love, according to the Idrins out there, I appreciate love the vibrations that we are sharing here tonight. And of course, a special kudos to Dominica's broadcasting station to allow this platform to help resonate and elevate the level of consciousness one conversation at a time. So naturally, I feel like a ideal song will be A Healing by Midnight. This one deals with the sonical powers of healing and Earth Song power.
Experiments in psychoneurosociology, exploring addiction to see why it be. Gave them a choice between the substance and money. On a minimal scale, it was 50-50. Increase the money, they leave the substance be. Medical journal pedigree have it printed in them stationery. So money worry play a part in a dependency. However ironic that would seem to be.
That was so deep and profound.
Yeah.
He was basically talking about the power of word song power, as well as giving man the choice to choose between the material as well as the financial. Whereas we have dissected Earth to the point where we are selling off the natural resources and claiming it to be valuable, and that is the irony in which we are living our lives. The decompartmentalizing and dissecting and destroying our planet to try to figure out that what we already know,
Yes.
We need a conscious healing in this place.
Marijuana in the world with permission of the state and the God bring a healing. Bring a healing.
Yes, the time is now 8:50 p.m. Brother Mac, the honor is one more call. Good evening, Streams of Consciousness.
Yeah, man, good evening. I just happened to tune in late. I need to comment only for initiating such program. But it's just that there's so many aspects, we probably have to divide it in sections. So
is this Dr. Dublin?
Yeah, so honestly, kind of pick up kind of late, but I think it's these conversations are very, very, very necessary. One aspect I would probably suggest that sometimes the difference between spirituality and the religion, because I'm just leading up to bringing it quickly to modern times when the spirituality was so misunderstood that up to this present time we see the impacts in terms of in for example in Haiti practicing their religion like voodoo and these things and the people putting these things within a category and convincing us that these things are evil.
Yeah.
Whereas it's just an expression of the people and their cultural practices. So it's so many aspects to it, but I think the conversation is very, very necessary. And I see you guys look like you are well able to deal with it as deep as it goes, but it's just so many things that we need to reconnect. And I like the word. It's a reconnection, a re-education of what we have been over the years. And it will take time because, I mean, up to this present moment, after 400 plus years of our enslaved Africans coming down, our old modern people who have access to all information still think that some of the concepts put forward are true in terms of the perception. Another aspect I think what may be important to link to show how we as descendants of enslaved Africans, and I deliberately use the word enslaved African because they didn't come willingly. Certain terminologies may have to be introduced and maintained to kind of get these ideas. I really want to comment.
Allow me to humbly disagree with you. Before you go off the phone, I would kind of refrain from saying enslaved African, you know what I mean? Because it was not slaves that were taken onto the boats, It was fathers, sons, kings, queens, carpenters, masons. So we were just Africans. We're not enslaved Africans. So
very much so.
That's the only thing.
Yeah, right. Because, I mean, we come from a mighty race, and unless we understand and agree that, then that impacting even on our present day-to-day perception of ourselves, We're trying to look at other races for guidance, whereas we have it all. Yes. One other aspect at some point then we may need to note is the question of the invention of African people and in things we use every day, like the basic microphone you're using now. All that has its origin. So it's so many things. I know you have a short time, but I'll be tuning in. So it's on, the program is every Monday around that time.
Every Monday between the hours of 8 to 9 p.m. And if you, like many others, I'm sure, might have missed it, you can always re-watch it again on Facebook. Dominica's Broadcasting Station is allowed there. I'll try and share it on my Facebook page as well. And I will be taking your advice into consideration, especially the part about where the invention. There are so many things that we as black people invented. And patents have been stolen and not given credence to. So it's a
good one.
Yeah,
great
man.
program. I'll be tuning in.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So yes, Brother Mike, the floor is yours. You have approximately 5 minutes, to leave people with your resonating conscious contributions, to the Pan Africanism as well as what we spoke about here tonight. Yeah.
Well, one thing I would like to address before I leave Hassan is the whole idea of as we were saying, the state of consciousness. And the whole reason for its decline. Now, I think that is important. I will try to sum it up in maybe 2-3 minutes. We have to understand, for example, that as I mentioned earlier on about the whole IFA divination system and the 4 arenas of perception as far as conscious thought is concerned, internally, externally, the past and the future. Because we as African people today, we see a decline in consciousness, and I believe the reason for that is simple. If we observe the life of African people on a global scale, and also our indigenous brothers and sisters like the Kainagos, we live in a state of survival because again of the whole systems we live under. Basically, as we say in our local term, we live hand to mouth. We live in survival. When you're living in survival, everything else gets switched off. The only thing you focus about is on yourself. So imagine you have 4 arenas dealing with, and you're only able to tap into just one, yourself. Internally, not because you choose to, but because of a survival mechanism. So you have no time to think about the other. You have no time to think about the past. And if you're not thinking about the past, you cannot think about the future. So we have eliminated 3 arenas already, and we're only dealing with one, which is internally. And that is why I believe, for example, as well, we have seen the overcompensation of people into their self. People. We have reached a stage, for example, where people are obsessed with themselves. It's me, myself, and I. No consideration for the other, whether it's your family, whether it's your community, whether it's your friends, your relatives, whatever the case might be. And I think we have seen that decline in consciousness, and that is a part of the reason why. Imagine you have a table trying to get it to stand on just one leg. The table has 4 legs, and you have kicked off 3. A table cannot stand on one leg. And that is the state of consciousness right now in Dominica. So I think we need to begin to open up ourselves to the ideas of basically changing. Again, at the end of the day, we have to think about how we the people meet their needs as a society, and if we could at least make life a bit more easier for the people, again, through new systems, new structures, economically, politically speaking, and people can live a more better life, then I think we'll be able to open up the whole idea of raising the level of consciousness and see a more united and a more loving society. And that is the dream of Pan-Africanism every time you think about it. Black people coming together, loving each other as one.
Yeah, man. Brother Mac, it's an absolute pleasure, of course, to have you here. And to those of us who are viewing and listening, it's an absolute pleasure to share this with you. I'm just going to close off with a closing prayer. Merciful Father Yahweh, thank you for another wonderful program here tonight on Streams of Consciousness. I hope that your word was heard, your vibes was felt, your thoughts was thought. If that's even a thing, but just know that your presence is always here, it's always encouraged, and just help your boy share some conscious positive vibrations. In a wonderful name I pray, hallelujah. Yes, and just like that, well, that's how I talk to the Creator. If anyone is viewing, I talk to him like I talk to any friend, and that's how I pray, So have yourself a wonderful night. It's been another wonderful episode of Streams of Consciousness.